Welcome to Scrollin', a podcast about the Elder Scrolls Online. I'm Ket.
I'm Davius.
This is episode number 28. I've been doing mostly BGs this week. I'm pretty much back to just, this is like Battlegrounds Online for me now. It's like what this game is.
You finally recovered from the group Battlegrounds going away. You know, it's been enough time for grieving, so now back to battle.
I guess so. I guess I've just kind of accepted that this is the new reality. It feels good, though. This is like the main thing that I've been into in this game for basically since it was introduced. And I really like it. And I kind of got away from it for a while. We were doing a lot of Imperial City kind of in place of this, in place of Battlegrounds. But I've been getting drawn back to Battlegrounds. And I think what I like about it so much is just that I think it's real easy to kind of see how different classes and builds and specs and stuff stack up against each other in Battlegrounds. It's the closest thing to a level playing field that we have so like, you know, you and I both, we like to experiment with a lot of different builds and stuff and just see what works and what doesn't work. And Battlegrounds is just the perfect place to test that stuff out and experiment.
Yeah, it really is just the purest form of PvP in the game. I mean, every there's so many different parts of PvP that are a lot of fun in the game, but Battlegrounds is just the purest part that you can really see how a build stacks up, how your actual skills stack up.
And it's like just you can just jump right in and just get in some fights right away. You don't have to. Yep. You know, like in Cyrodiil, you got to play horse simulator to get to any fights, and if you die, you're just going to have to do that again. It's kind of frustrating. And Imperial City has its own kind of version of that. You have to travel quite a bit to find fights. I like the Battlegrounds. Is just you're just right up in the action right away. It's really fun. It's been tough lately though, man. I'm reminded a lot of the old dot meta. It really feels a lot like that now. Not that dots aren't what they were back then, but we're very much in a proc set meta right now.
Yep.
And it's a very similar thing where I just kind of peek out from behind a corner for a second, and suddenly I have like so many negative effects on me that like, you know, a player doesn't even have to be focusing me, and I'm like struggling for my life.
Yep.
Venomous Smite is the.
Yeah, I was just about to say,
one.
Guaranteed one of those negative effects on you is Venomous Smite. Guaranteed.
Oh yeah, for sure. And man, that thing is vicious too, and you have to really watch out because just one person can apply that to your entire group, and if you're all standing close to each other, like you're really supposed to do in a battleground, but now you're all overlapping each other with that venomous smite, so everyone has a 4 stack of that on them just from one player spamming like arrow spray on them or something like that.
Gets nasty real quick.
Yeah, and I've been working on a stamDK build that I think is a really strong build, maybe in a different meta, but I'm starting to think in this meta, it may not be so great. It's a medium armor melee, like straight up brawler build. So it's just a 2-hander and dual wield on the other bar. So she can't do anything without being face to face, like, you know, within 7 meters of an enemy. And man, the moment you get that close to anyone, you have so many different procs on you at a time. Like you just walk through someone's caltrops or something like that, and it's like no one even has to be attacking me, and I'm like struggling to stay alive.
That's actually a really good point. That may be the thing. You know, I agree with you. It really feels like, you know, we're having flashbacks to that dot meta where it's just you're just on high alert at all times. But maybe the thing that reminds me the most about it is that it is a tough world out there for melee right now. I mean,
big time.
Ranged is loving this proc meta, which is exactly, you know, ranged love the dot meta, and you just that distance you have to travel to get to melee to start hitting these characters. You know, you're below half health by the time you get to them, and you're already on the defensive before you even get anything out there.
You really have to be. Like you have to play if you're a melee spec, it has to be a hit and run. Like you have to have some sort of like movement, some sort of speed to get out of trouble when you need to, and you need to be packing a ton of damage to get the job done quickly. And you got to get out of there. So I mean, like stamsorks, they're doing pretty well. But that's because they have streak. That's really the main reason is because they just have that one ability that helps them get in and out of trouble really easily.
Yeah, stamsorks are doing well, and the the ironically, well, not ironically, but interestingly, the favorite right now is bow builds if you're stamina. To I think it's take
Yeah.
advantage of that range.
Oh yeah, totally. Like my, I've been playing with my stamina necromancer bow build here lately. That I've really, he's one of the stamina characters I've been having the most success with, and it's I think largely for that reason because I can do a lot of damage from like 28 meters away,
Yep.
and kind of stay out of a lot of that grossness that's going on like up in that brawl.
Yep. Same thing for me is my Stam Warden, my bow build. That's the one I've been having by far the most success with. And then also, he has the netch that is cleansing to help with the cleansing of things. So
Yeah.
same thing for me. It's the if you're stamina, bow is the kind of the favorite right now for sure.
Yeah, it's just yeah, because you can actually do something without without 10 stacks of venomous smite on you. Uh, I've,
Yeah.
I've been playing with my old main again as well, old Betsy, my stamina Templar. I've been spending some more time with her this week as well. It always just you know how it is like with your main.
Ugh.
You just go back to your main after some time away. You've been spending some time with some other characters, and it's been fun. It's been great. But then you get back on that main, and it's just like, oh hey baby, I miss you.
Missed
Like
you
it's
so
just it just feels so good. And actually, I think that's another exception to what we're saying about melee builds. I think Stamplar feels pretty good to me in battlegrounds, just because you have that cleanse. So you get all those
yeah.
stacks of venomous smite or whatever else is being applied to you. You can just cleanse them right off, and it's no big deal. And I have mine spec to be really really fast as well, so I kind of have both of those things going for me. I can get out of trouble. I have that hit and run sort of play style, like get a quick kill, then get back out of trouble. Plus, I can cleanse off all that grossness. So I feel like Stamplar's in a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
Magplar as well, obviously, and I think this next patch coming up, proc sets across the board basically are getting buffed in general, and we're very much in a proc meta right now, and that's just we're doubling down on that big time.
Double down.
This coming Monday. Um, so I guess just get ready for that. I think we're actually heading for I think a pretty tanky meta because I think people are already starting to get tired of just dying so quickly right now and no CP PvP. Man, you just it's even in the sweaty matches with really good players. There's a huge death count going on.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to start seeing like high HP, like high resistance, really tanky builds that are relying a lot on procs for a lot of their damage.
Yeah, I feel like kind of going back to what you said is that if you got a stamina character and you're not using a bow, you better have that Ring of the Wild Hunt on. You better get that thing on the build or otherwise, like you said, you really need to hit and run with a bow.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is it's interesting that how we're talking about battlegrounds right now. It's just there's a lot of death counts. It's really reminding us of the dot meta, but in PvP areas with CP. It almost seems kind of normal to me. Like I've been in Cyrodiil a lot this week, and when I'm getting in one-on-one fights, back before this meta, I felt like Battlegrounds was like really perfect, like really in the sweet spot. But in CP PvP, I felt like it took forever to kill anybody. Everybody was invincible. And now it's interesting that it's almost like you can have one or the other. That in a
Yeah.
CP PvP area right now, I feel like I can actually kill people. I feel like it's pretty good fights, but you go into a battleground and it's just,
It's too
anytime you
volatile.
anytime you touch someone, they're dead, then you get touched and you're dead. So
Yes.
it's kind of like I don't know if, maybe that's by design, but it's kind of like both of them can't find the sweet spot.
Yeah, I know a lot of people ask for like just delete CP from PvP in general. I know I personally would probably be fine with that, but I know a lot of players would like straight quit the game if that happens. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that's a viable solution or not, but I know you're totally right though. It's either CP PvP feels good or non CP PvP feels good. Hardly ever do they both feel good.
Yeah. And speaking of Cyrodiil, I was in it this week, and when I was if I just had one person within 50 meters of me, it felt good. It felt like a good fight. But outside of that, the performance is just it's brutal right now. It is.
Yeah.
It's a tough go.
What was the
Um,
pop like when you were in there?
it was pop locked. I mean, it's it's the last. This is the last week of the campaign, so I actually
Oh
had
yeah.
pretty long wait times just to get in. And I hopped in multiple days with multiple characters. That's pretty much what I spent most of my week doing was Cyrodiil. One of the days, I think it was earlier in the week, I was on my Stam Warden Bearclaw, and that day the performance was terrible, but I was in a phenomenal group. I mean, I think we took like 7 keeps in like an hour and a half. Like we were just going from
Wow.
keep to keep to keep, just annihilating, just
Was it like
going in with
was someone
numbers.
doing like an emperor push or something?
No, I
No.
mean, I think I mean, we just had a real organized group. Everybody was staying on Crown, and we were just doing really good. We had a really good leader. Crown was given really good instructions,
Cool.
and taking us on a good path. So that was fun to a degree, but it was just when you're in those fights, and we were in that real organized group. I mean, just all strategy. The performance was so bad. I just felt like strategy went out the window. Like when we were taking the keeps, I was just kind of spamming one ability because it was like I can't do my rotation. It's
Yeah,
not possible. It's
that's what's kind of funny about these AoE tests and like kind of blaming AoE spam for the performance issues when I feel like the performance issues are the reason for the AoE spam. You know, that's like the only playstyle that's actually viable because of
yeah,
the performance, you know.
yeah. I mean, I wasn't even trying. I mean, I'll be honest. On the very first keep we were taking, I actually tried, and then it wasn't impossible. And so I was just running with the group. I was light tacking, and I was trying to just do my spammable. But that's pretty much all I did, and it was it worked. We were very successful, but there's just not any more you can do with just how bad the performance is.
Yeah.
Um, and then later in the week, I was in with my Stam Sork, and that day was the opposite. That day did not go well. It was just trying to defend keeps all night long, and we just kept losing keep and losing keep. But still, the same thing with the performance. It just I'd actually, and especially with the Stam Sork, it really hurt those performance issues with the Stam Sork because I mean they're just with the Stam Sork. Anybody who plays it knows you got to be moving a lot. You got to be
It's a high
you're
actions per minute play
exactly.
style.
You got to move a lot. You got to be clicking things. And I would try to pick fights and try to pick people off the corner of the edges of the group, and it was a frustrating night to say the least because it just I'd click the streak button and then just sit there for 8 seconds, and then I would streak, and somehow I would die halfway through my streak, and so I would just
Yeah.
streak as a corpse and then just land as a corpse. It was tough. It was tough.
I guess that's the good part of the good side of the performance issues are the wacky animation bugs that you run into.
Those do get entertaining. Anytime you're hopping on a mount in Cyrodiil this week, it's a solid 4 seconds to actually get on the mount. So, I guess all in all, what I'm saying with this is that I am excited that they're diving into Cyrodiil with these tests. Like, we've said this
Yeah.
multiple times now that a fix has to happen there. It just, I
Something's
all
got to
week
give.
long, yeah, all week long, I just couldn't help but think those people that are making Emperor pushes right now, major kudos to those people's patience because I
Yeah.
can't imagine constantly playing in Cyrodiil. I did it this one week, and for the most part, I was miserable by the end of this week. It made me miss Imperial City, made me miss Battlegrounds. And I think it was extra tough because the last time I really spent a lot of time in Cyrodiil we talked about this, was during the Mid-Year Mayhem when performance was actually really good. They opened up all the different things, and we talked about it. That's not really the fix. That was kind of they wanted that event. They knew that event was going to have high traffic, so they did a temporary performance boon during that time. But man, going from that memory of Cyrodiil to this week, oof, that was like a night and day difference.
I
It
know it
was
really that's the worst part about those events is they're so much fun and then we know at the end we got to go back.
uh, it was a tough going from that performance to this performance. Yeah, and like I said, especially on the Stam Sork, I was on him last night, and I just couldn't even play with him. I just got my level 1 so I could get my transmute crystals, and then just got out of there.
Yeah, I haven't really. I did a little bit of Cyrodiil. I guess when I was in there, it wasn't quite that bad, but the pop wasn't as high when I was there.
Yeah, I think most this week, all three factions were pretty much pop locked.
Yeah,
The
people getting
entire
that
the
that
entire
last
week.
minute transmute grind.
Yeah, to get those transmute
It
crystals. We
ends
there.
like it's over now. By the time anyone's listening to this, it's over. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's true. We did the late last night. I did hop on with my stamCro a little bit, and I did have some fun. The hammer pop. What is it? Volendrum? Is that what it's
oh
called?
yeah, yeah.
We had an EP person have that. He was actually experienced with it, and so I followed him around a little bit. Performance was terrible, but it was pretty funny just to watch. It's crazy to watch that hammer in action.
That
It's
thing's
just
absurd.
it's insane. It just
Yeah.
mowing through. I'm talking tens and tens and tens of people. I probably watched him just mow through an army of probably, I want to say at least 25, 30 people. And there was maybe like five of us around the hammer at the time. And we weren't even doing anything, and he was doing all the stuff. And it was pretty funny to watch that thing go. And he was very successful. I followed him around, and we took a couple keeps and defended a couple keeps. And then I finally called it a night. But it was pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see that thing in action, especially when somebody knows how to use that thing. And this guy was very skilled with it, so it was pretty cool to see what he was able to do with that thing. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Those Zerg fights with someone with Volendrung it's always a wild time because everyone sees it on the map and it just draws everyone there. And it always ends up being a massive thing.
Yeah, every time I see it, it reminds me of that intro to the Lord of the Rings movie where the giant guy's just swinging the mace and people are just flying off like by the 20. That's how I feel every time somebody knows how to use that thing and they're in Cyrodiil swinging that thing.
That's cool. Let's see what else. I had some other stuff here. I know last time I was talking about playing with my magBlade. I kind of made a commitment to be a good magBlade PvPer. So I've been playing with him some more to towards that effort there. And it is a challenge. I gotta say, I still my opinion hasn't changed that magBlades have their challenges for sure. And I'm trying a lot of different strategies, a lot of different setups, different kind of skill loadouts and stuff. Uh, and I'll play some battlegrounds and stuff, and kind of see how I can do, see what kind of results I can get, and mediocre to sometimes like not quite even mediocre results. And so I'll be thinking like, okay, maybe I'm having an off day. Maybe just today's not my day. But then I'll log in with a different character, just any other character of mine, and I do all right.
Goes really
it,
well.
it goes it goes okay. So I'm sure it's partially just magBlade just doesn't excel in that kind of environment. Just their toolkit just isn't super well tuned for that environment. But I'm not giving up yet. I think that they do have potential. I've had enough good matches that I see the potential there. I think when I find that groove, when I get into that groove, it feels really good and it's really rewarding and really, really fun. So I'm sticking with it. I think one thing, and I hate to say it because it bums me out, but I think I'm going to have to stop using Torg's Pact, um, which
That's
is a
one of your
set.
favorite sets.
I really love that set, and it's really good on a magBlade, but the problem is it's so that set is so super dependent on bar swapping because you have to get to get everything out of that set, you have to constantly be activating your weapon glyphs on both bars, right? And so like if you're using Torg's Pact, your damage buff, like your build's main damage buff is probably going to be your infused weapon damage glyph on your back bar resto staff, or that's what it is for me. It's like 600 something weapon or spell damage. It's a lot.
Gotcha.
So I'm having to constantly swap back to that to proc that glyph, and then back to my front bar to actually do my damage combo and stuff. And something I've said before, and something I think a lot of people understand about magBlade, is their combo is very, very predictable, and you have to kind of play this guessing game with your enemy and kind of trick them into like dodging at a time, when they think they should, but actually it wasn't the right time or whatever. You kind of have to play these weird timing games with your enemies. And I find that between doing that and constantly having to bar swap to reproc that glyph, I'm like missing these micro windows of opportunity that I might have gotten that kill if I wasn't busy trying to juggle all that stuff going on there. So
Do you have a plan for what you're possibly going to switch towards Spec'd Out for?
I don't know yet. There's a few, like I was using Ancient Dragon Guard for a little while. Isn't that the one that gives you weapon and spell damage when you're above 50%, and it gives you resistance when you're below 50%?
That's the one.
That's a pretty good set. I may go back to that one. But I think the main thing is I need to I need to use something where basically my entire offense is on the front bar only, and I only go to the back bar for like rebuffing and healing and going on defense. And that's how most of my builds are kind of set up that way anyway. So that won't be a difficult adjustment to make, I don't think. I just need to figure out what set I'm going to use. I think Ancient Dragon Guard's a good one. I might just use Spinner. It's always a effective set.
Always clutch.
Yeah, always works. Now, what's so nice about Torig's Pact is that it's with that said, it's all about light attack weaving, right? You have to light attack weave to get anything at all out of it. And a Nightblade as a class is highly incentivized to always be light attack weaving. They have multiple class mechanics that basically are designed around the concept of light attack weaving. So I like how that set synergizes with the Nightblade class especially. And it's getting buffed so much. It's going to be a juicy set. It already is, but I think it's too much. All the bar swapping and stuff. I'm just missing my combos too much of the time. So I gotta use something that's going to allow me to just stay on that front bar for my offense. So Ancient Dragon Guard, Spinner, maybe even just Julianos, something like that.
Yeah, something that'll allow you that front bar allow you to be a little bit more unpredictable with your hits. A little more creative. A
little more unpredictable, or like a little more capable of seizing the opportunity at a moment's notice. Like I would constantly find myself like, okay, flipping to my back bar to reproc my damage glyph, but like while I'm back there was an opportunity to execute the enemy, but by the time I flip to my front bar, that tiny little window of opportunity is gone and I missed it. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about on the magBlade. That's the next kind of thing I'm thinking there is that I need to make that adjustment, and maybe I'll start having a little bit better success. That's kind of where my mind's at. I'm trying to think of what else I've been doing this week. I started the Clockwork City quest again.
You did start up the grind, and you're actually paying attention to the grind this time, right?
Yeah, well, not the grind. We're just doing the story quest.
Well, yeah, I say grind, like the actual quest of the story.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. That's one I really need to do.
It's pretty funny. I'm only barely into it, but the beginning of it I think was kind of funny. I just thought I would tell you about this. So I ported into Clockwork City, like you automatically have a way shrine unlocked. So I ported in, and there's this Dunmer lady there, and it's like basically just this typical like, oh, you're here, thank goodness. And we're about to start the quest, but then she's like, hey, actually, my boss needs to talk to you, and he's back in Mournhold in Deshawn. So could you go talk to him? I'm like, well, I just got here in Clockwork City. She's like, yeah, just go talk to my boss. All right, fine. So I just turn around and go back to the way shrine, port back to Mournhold, and go find this dude. And this dude's like, oh, sweet. Yeah. Hey, actually, I need you to go to Clockwork City to get this artifact for me.
Oh my God.
Like, I was just there. Your assistant told me to come here. Why couldn't she have just told me? He's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I know how to get there. So follow me. I'm like, no, I know how to get there. Like, there's a way shrine. It's no problem. I'll just go back. He's like, no. Follow me. Come with me. There's a waterfall back behind the city here. We're going to get there. No problem. I'm like, dude. I already know how to get there. And he's like, come on. Like, all right, fine. Got to follow him. So it was just kind of a hilarious thing. And then we go back to Clockwork City, me with this guy now. I guess I was probably meant to encounter that quest a different way, probably. I probably wasn't meant to port directly into Clockwork City and start it that way. I was probably supposed to pick up that quest somewhere else somehow. But I can't
That's
remember
pretty
how I
good.
started it the first time I did it, but I just thought that was funny. Like I was just getting bounced around all over the place.
Back and forth.
And then just that weird moment, the guy's like, "Oh yeah, don't worry, I know how to get to Clockwork City." I'm like, "I was just there, dude."
I know how to get there.
He's like, "Come on, it's a secret passage." I'm like, oh my god.
Did that expansion did that come out right before Morrowind or right after the Morrowind
I think
expansion?
it was after. I don't remember. I want to say it was after.
That would make sense if it was after.
I know the
It goes
storylines are
along
kind
with
of tied together somehow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what was going on there. I think that's mostly kind of has been my week. Just a lot of BGs and just trying to different characters out and just kind of making observations about who does well, who doesn't. It's hard for melee. It's hard for melee brawlers out there unless
It's tough.
you're a Templar with cleanse or you're a stamSorc with streak. I think most other melee builds are struggling.
Yeah, my stamDK, I'm in the same boat. I've been struggling with that. That's the ulti-gen build. And you leap in. He's got leap so much that I usually start the combo with a leap, go through my combo, and then his leap's already back. But boy, after that first leap is over, I'm already struggling in the middle of that fight with how much negative effects are on me. So
Yeah.
he's had a tough go of late. Same thing with my stamCro, the two-handed build. That's those brawlers. It's a tough life out there right now. And neither one of those builds, I don't even have a bow back bar on them. So they've got to be up in people's faces. And so I feel like most of the time I'm in BGs with them, I'm trying to protect myself, and then I'll usually hit a point in the BG where I'm like, all right, I'm tired of hiding behind line of sight. Like, I'm just going to go. I just get impatient at some point, and then I just start going after it, and then it usually ends poorly. So
Yeah, that's how it is. Like my stamDK that I was talking about earlier. Like I basically spend most of the match playing extremely defensively, and then I'll go try to take like an opportunity to take someone out, and it's like, man, the moment I even try, it's just like 10,000 negative effects.
it's like you can hear the other players like, oh, look at this guy.
Yeah.
This guy's a melee. Look at him. He's
And
come
it's-
out from hiding.
And what's frustrating about it is it's all passive damage. Like most of the damage that I'm taking, like the player applying it to me isn't even aware that it's happening. It's like so passive and unintentional. That's what I don't like about it, because I feel like I'm just struggling against the environment, not necessarily other players.
Yeah, they've already moved on, or they're focusing somebody else, or they're moving away from you. That's the frustrating part, is that they're usually, because you can usually get close enough to hit him, but all of their procs and passives already hit you. So they're just spending that time getting away from you. And if you're trying to even get back within range of them, your health bar is just sitting there melting as you're trying to get back.
Yeah,
or trying to get back to them.
It's so tough. And it's going to be even more that way starting Monday. So get ready for that. I think my stamCro bow build is ready for it, and he's like, "Listen, I'm not saying I'm not part of the problem, okay? Like
we're both part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, you just use what works, right? And that's what works right now. And my stamCro, he's using some of the nastiest proc sets out there. And he's ready for Monday. He's going to be doing really, really well. So I'm looking forward to that. And we'll be doing a build spotlight on that dude. I don't know, probably in the next couple of weeks. It's totally done and ready. I'm just kind of waiting for a time that would be a good time to do it on the podcast, like when there's not other stuff to be talking about and stuff.
One thing I was going to say, so I kind of made a list of 3 things that I'm most excited about going into this new patch. So I was gonna list my 3 things, and I'm curious to see if you know your 3 things, or maybe we can discuss and you can discover your 3 things. So, and we've kind of already mentioned this in previous episodes, but the top 3 things that I'm most excited about. Number 1, just there's an ulti-gen buff across the board, I feel like. Ulti-gen is getting a massive buff. Bloodspawn's going back to the way it was. Decisive is getting one of the better trait buffs among the trait buffs out there. I feel like it's getting a huge buff. And then even the ulti-gen sets, so your Shulks, Champion of the Hiss, Werewolf Hide, every single one of those sets is getting a buff. I just kind of was looking things, and as somebody who loves Ultimate Generation, to see everything across the board just kind of just get a buff. That's the number one thing I'm most excited
Yeah,
about. That's
basically
my
like
favorite type
everything
of
ultimate
build.
related is straight
Yeah.
buffed, right?
That's my favorite type of build. So to see that buff across the board, I'm excited to see what that's going to do. It may not be a big enough buff to make a huge difference, but I'm sure as heck excited to get in some battlegrounds and see what difference it does make.
Well,
So that's my number
one
one.
of those, I think any one of those things taken individually is a pretty small thing, but if you have a build using, multiple or even all of those things, then I think it would add up to a significant buff to that build. Like, I have a stamDK that has basically 3 different ulti gen sets and the decisive trait. So basically, yeah, she's just going to wake up on Monday and have a lot more ultimate regen capability than she did the day before.
My stamDK might be, we're talking after these buffs, is going to be pretty darn close to having leap as my spammable.
That would be amazing, man. You're going to get reported for hacking. People are going to like be in disbelief at how frequent you're leaping, and they're going to report you for hacking.
They're just going to, from a distance, if it's like the lava battleground where you can see the whole battleground, just to see in a distance that's DK just leaping from player to player. They're like, what the heck is this guy?
It's like leapfrogging across the map.
It's just how I travel around. It's just the new travel. But yeah, so that's definitely the number one thing I'm most excited about is just the buff for ultimate generation. The number 2 thing that I'm really excited about, and I've mentioned this too, I'm really excited to see how much harder my stamCro is going to hit. It may not be much harder, but the Sword Singer set and his whole build is dedicated around that Sword Singer set with the flat 2-handed weapon damage buff. And from that set going from 450 to 600, I can't wait to get into some PvP or some battlegrounds just to see what difference that make. It may be small, it may be not. Maybe I'm like overhyping the difference, but that seems like a pretty significant buff.
It's significant, and what's cool too about that particular set, like usually these sets that they add weapon damage to a specific like type of damage or a type of ability. The downside to that is they don't affect your heals. But with that, you're using Rally, and that's a 2-handed ability. So a 600 weapon damage buff to Rally is pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's a major heal buff and damage buff. You're exactly right. Is that it's the heals my heals are going to be great. Plus, it's on a stamCro, so I do the Spirit, so he already takes some damage reduction. I have that morph, so I'm really excited to see what that's going to look like, and if that's going to be maybe I'm overhyping that buff, but I really think he's going to hit. He's going to hit like a truck. This upcoming patch.
Oh yeah, people were flocking to New Moon Acolyte for 482 damage. So
yep,
600 absolutely.
It's a lot. That's a lot to get from one 5-piece set for sure. And then just the last part of this is I'm just excited, for the continuation of just the Greymoor storyline, to see where we're going. I thought they did a fantastic job on the PvE side. They ended really well, good cliffhanger, but kind of good resolution at the same time. So I can't wait.
And we still have a story zone left later in the year as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited to see kind of get to the next steps of Greymoor to, we'll see what that looks like, but that's my 3 things.
Let's see. I'll think of some things. I think the probably the most obvious thing that I'm looking forward to is my stamCro bow build that I've been talking about so much. Just because I've basically just been sitting and waiting for this patch to go live. Because the build is done and it's together, and it's good already. It's perfectly a great build right now, but it's going to be so much better on Monday. So I'm really excited about that. So the sheer Venom set, the buff that it's getting is it's going to be getting it'll deal up to 100% additional damage as your enemy loses health. And that execute bonus kicks in immediately. It's not like below 50% health or whatever. It's below 100% health. So as they lose health, it's going to be doing more and more and more damage.
I think the most important thing to mention there is that this build is already doing fantastic in Battlegrounds right now. So the fact that it's getting a significant buff going to this, I mean, this thing is going to be lethal. Um, I'm excited for you just to see the kind of results that you're going to get, once this patch drops.
It's going to be downright trolly, honestly. It really is, because
get the hate whispers ready.
The sheer venom is going to have that execute bonus. Plus, you activate sheer venom with poison injection, which is a damage over time execute ability. So it has execute damage that kicks in at 50% health as well. So those are going to like stack on top of each other. Plus, I just have a lot of damage on top of that. They're just going to, and they're going to be having, Blast Bones is going to be giving them major defile, possibly even minor defile, because it deals disease damage, and disease damage can always possibly apply minor defile. So they're going to have all this execute damage, and they're going to be having an extremely difficult time healing. Healing already sucks in PvP, right? It's already like you take 60% reduced healing in PvP already. So having major and minor defile and all this execute damage ticking away, plus just the burst attacks as well that are coming from the build.
That's kind of an underrated thing in Battlegrounds, right? Well, really just PvP right now is how minor and major defile are everywhere right now. So on top of how dangerous it is out there, and on top of the nerfs to healing, those debuffs, they're on you almost all the time now.
Well, that's a big part of what makes it so difficult, because there's all these proc sets are so popular, and they're being passively applied to you. And also, stamina necromancers are extremely popular as well. And so you have all this AOE major and minor defile just popping off all over the place. It can be extremely difficult just to out heal the environment.
Yeah, it's crazy that it takes a lot of patience, but the strategy in Battlegrounds right now really is you have to be so strategic with your strikes. Like you really need to be line of sighting, staying safe, taking care of yourself, and your entire team needs to be doing it, and be very strategic when you strike, because that as soon as the team gets impatient and makes one wrong step, it just sets the tone for the whole match. And then you can see a team, once they get impatient and it leads, they start dying, it leads to more frustration, and so they start getting more and more impatient. I've seen entire Battleground matches just completely change, because you can tell one person was like, all right, I'm tired of this defensive, strategic patience strategy, and then it just switches the whole Battleground.
Yeah, it really does. So that's sheer venom, and then the other 5-piece set that he's using is poisonous serpent, and that one I think is getting buffed as well. It's, I guess, technically, mathematically, it's not really getting buffed. It's going to be on average about the same, but right now the way it works is it procs on light. It has a 50% chance to proc on your light attacks with no cooldown. And then the change is going to be it's a guaranteed proc, but with a 2-second cooldown. So, the way it is right now, on average, you're getting it about every other light attack. But starting on Monday, it's going to be guaranteed every other light attack. So I think that's better. The upside for it right now is sometimes you can get lucky and get it, say, like 5 light attacks in a row, and that could be really sweet. But you can also get equally unlucky as well. I welcome the consistency there. I think that's going to be good.
Yeah, I think the important part of that too with your build is that you're already hitting for so much damage that the consistency of that I think you're right. I think that's going to help you.
Yeah. So I'd say that's probably the number one thing I'm looking forward to is just that build, just getting so much better all of a sudden. That's going to be just fun to watch and just play around with. Kind of like we talked about on the last episode, the stuff that I'm most kind of pleased with happening this patch is all the little things, like Mundus stones and armor traits and jewelry traits, weapon traits, all that stuff being adjusted in some very good ways. I think I like all that stuff. I like the fact that like the recovery Mundus stones are being buffed significantly. And at the same time, the Divine's trait is being buffed as well. And so if you're using both of those things, which a lot of my characters are, that's just an instant double buff right there. Yeah. And it's going to allow me a lot more freedom to work more damage into those builds, because I have a lot more recovery than I did before. And stuff like that, like well fitted's getting buffed, and the swift trait is getting buffed, and kind of like I mentioned on the last episode, I have several characters that use both of those traits together as well. So again, that's a double buff that all those characters are going to be getting. And there's just tons of little examples like that. Like I feel like they were pretty clever about these things that are getting buffed, and they're kind of buffing things that do go together, so that you would want to use those together.
It really is. It's the time of theory crafting right now. Like, I mean, in all the time I've played ESO, I haven't played since launch, but since 1 Tamriel, I would argue that this is the best time for theory crafting, especially PvP. Especially PvP. I don't, maybe there's another time in PvE where it was competing, but I would argue that this has been the top tier time for actual full theory crafting with creativity and builds and piecing things together.
Yeah, there really is so many possibilities. I guess, I don't know. I agree with you. I agree. That's totally true. There's so many like viable options right now. Except you go into a battleground and it's just venomous smite as far as the eye can see. So it's like it seems like not everyone has taken advantage of all these possibilities, but the possibilities are out there for sure.
I mean, I look at Venomous Smite as it's the new set. It's the flashy brand new set, new zone. It kind of took the place. I mean, I think a lot of people still use New Moon.
I think Venomous Smite's just kind of taken the places. That's kind of all the rage. That's kind of the flashy set to have right now. So, I just look at it as eventually that set's probably going to come down a peg.
Oh, it's for sure going to get nerfed eventually. You can quote Scrollin' Podcast on that.
Scrollin'
Podcast. I'll eat my hat if it doesn't get nerfed eventually. I would say within a calendar year. Right?
Okay, stamp, seal of approval. That's getting nerfed.
Yeah. Let's see. What else?
You still got one. You still got number 3.
Oh, let's see. Bobby's getting buffed.
I actually wanted to go back to Bobby for a second. So The first set you mentioned, you said the buff is that the execute's happening at 100%. What's the more detail of that change? Like, what is it currently right now, and what is it going to?
So right now, what that set does is, what the 5-piece does is when you deal damage with an execute ability, it applies like a poison dot for 6 seconds, I think it is.
Okay.
And so, the trick is you use poison injection because that's an execute ability, but it's also a damage over time ability. So it procs the set, and then when the set drops off, poison injection ticks again and reprocs it. So they go really, really well together. So that's all it is. It just applies a damage over time. But so the buff is now that damage over time is going to be increasing as your target loses health. Up to 100% additional damage, the lower they get.
Wow. So that makes a lot of sense, because really the doubling down of that even is, it's already a great executability. You're using it to proc that, but you also it's a great executability. So that makes a lot of sense. Is that's going to be an insane executability now.
You use an executability to proc it, and then the proc itself is an execute. So it's really nice. It's going to be vicious.
Sick buff.
I don't know if I have a third thing. I mean, I guess, that the second thing I said was kind of a bunch of things, right? Like
that's true.
Moon to stones and traits and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, in general, I think the thing I'm most happy about is what you were just saying, like how much flexibility and creativity is kind of allowed right now in the current meta. We are in this really very much a proc meta. But that doesn't mean that's the only stuff that works. And there's lots of, other build types that definitely work. Like my Stamplar doesn't use a single proc item whatsoever, and she's one of my very best characters. So I like the fact that, you can use like 5 pieces of this and 3 pieces of this and 2 pieces of this and 1 piece of this, and you can really cobble together these builds in so many different ways to get everything dialed in just the way you like it. Like it's easier than ever to get your build just exactly in that sweet spot that you're looking for.
To exactly your type of playstyle too. You can really customize it for the different type of playstyle to really, if you enjoy one different style, all this theory crafting and customization really lets you kind of go all in on what works best for you.
Oh yeah, it's great, and I know I've mentioned it lots of times before, but in the past, I've always been more willing to sacrifice damage than I am willing to sacrifice the playstyle that I'm trying to have. And so in past metas, the builds that I was using that I had fun with really didn't hit all that hard. And I'm actually having a lot of fun now because now I'm running builds that have like 5,000 weapon damage, but they're also, they have this like roly-poly kind of dodgy, speedy sort of play style that I like. And I felt like in the past it was difficult to have both of those things. But we have base crit resistance. I can really use it well fitted a lot more. And we have that Ring of the Wild Hunt, and there's just so many different ways to, and all the arena weapons are much more accessible now as well. So that's just another way to pack more damage into the build. So yeah, I'm really pleased with a lot of things about the current meta. I would like to see this proc meta toned down a bit. It's probably not going to happen for another couple of patches, and that's fine. It goes in cycles, it's whatever. And I think you can always adjust, like when we're in something like this, like the proc meta or the dot meta, there are certain classes that excel in those metas. And I guess you and I do all right. We always have a pretty relaxed attitude because we have a bunch of different characters. And so it's like, okay, it's a proc meta or it's a dot meta. I'm just going to mostly play with my Templar then because I can just cleanse that stuff off. No big deal.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key, just kind of having a variety of characters that you can kind of switch around, because I think no matter what the meta is, if you have a varied enough roster, you're going to be able to log in with someone that you're going to have a good time with.
I was thinking as you were talking about the dot meta again, I was having, nightmare flashbacks. I feel like we should get like an in-game badge saying like, I survived the dot meta. we might be saying the same thing about that, a couple months from now with the proc meta. So
have you seen that meme? It's like it's like a close-up picture of a chihuahua like superimposed over this like war scene. It like makes it look like this chihuahua's having this like intense flashback of like being in a war or something like that. I guess not. But it's like that whenever I think of the dot meta, it's like I hear like this music and I'm like, no.
I survived the dot meta.
I think the meta that we're in right now is even worse than that. I think it's an even more volatile. Because the thing with the dot meta is at least somebody had to look at you and on purpose cast that ability at you. That's not the case now at all, man. Someone can just throw a couple of AoEs on the ground and not even know that you're there at all.
And specifically too, we have Malakath banned in this meta, and that combined with this is really, especially for BGs specifically, that is a nasty little cherry on top for this current situation.
Yeah, I've heard people call it the pay to win band of brutality. You're right. In no CP, it is especially pronounced, but it's not just there. I was running around in Cyrodiil, in CP Cyrodiil on my DK who wears the band of brutality, and it's pretty darn effective there too.
If it's paired with the right setup, it's a nasty combination.
Yeah. And we talked about it before, but maybe some listener hasn't listened to the episode where we were talking about that. So just kind of rehash it again. When you're dealing critical damage to someone, typically, without just in a typical case, you're dealing 50% bonus damage to them. But when you consider the fact that they have critical resistance, you're actually not dealing 50% additional damage to them. You're dealing more like 20% or so additional damage to them. And that's like 50% of the time on a typical crit rate, on a typical build. So, when you think of the Malakath Band of Brutality, you're dealing 25% additional damage that doesn't interact with critical resistance at all. The math kind of works out, so it's basically as if you have a 100% crit rate, because you're dealing about as much damage as a crit would do, but you're doing it on every single attack. And their crit resistance doesn't factor in whatsoever. So it's so powerful in PvP. And like you and I have talked about lots of times before, Davey, it's something that takes you by surprise if if you've mostly been messing with it in PvE and like beating up monsters and stuff with it, you're like, oh yeah, this thing seems pretty strong. Okay, that's pretty cool. It's a totally different thing when you're up against players. It just melts them immediately. It's a sight to behold.
It's basically when you're hitting some PvE monsters with it, it's like some smooth jazz playing in the background, and then you get into the battleground, and just like some crazy heavy death metal just immediately starts playing. You're like, oh my god, what happened?
Because you're used to kind of coming up against critical resistance, I think. So you kind of have an idea of how difficult it is to take a player down, and then all of a sudden, like it's just that critical resistance is gone, and you're just bypassing it entirely, and it's wild.
Well, I think it's important to note right now too is that we're still really new with this, built-in crit resist with players. Where players are starting to go away from MPin. They're starting to add less and less of it on the builds. I think that's important to note right now too, where Malakath is so effective right now, is that a lot of players, and this is true for me too with a lot of my builds, I've got so many builds, I don't have the transmute crystals to change all these characters. They were rocking full MPin. And so I haven't had a chance to change all that full MPin right now. So, it's harder than ever in PvP to crit somebody or to have effective crit, because I think a lot of players out there are still, they're still over crit resist with the built-in crit resist, with all the MPin pieces. I don't think everybody has switched everything over yet. I think people are starting to switch and starting to move away from it. But I still think it's recent enough that not everybody has made those changes. So that kind of doubles down on why Malakath is so effective, is they crit. It really kind of hasn't balanced itself out yet where, people have got their crit resist back to the usual levels. I think everybody's running a little higher than usual right now. And so it really makes that Malakath band shine right now. Yeah,
I think a lot of players probably do like just kind of, I'll just go all MPin. That's the PvP trait. And it even it's even still like in the little tips that you get when you die. Then they put those smart alecky little tips in there, which I like them. I think they're funny.
Oh, they're great.
But one of those tips is it tells you to wear more MPin.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like they haven't even updated those kind of tips and stuff, because I feel like MPin is less important than ever. I mean, think about it. Malakath Band of Brutality can't crit. We're also in a proc meta. Proc sets cannot crit, so your MPin isn't doing anything against those either.
Yep.
Really,
it's interesting because, like I said, the built-in crit resist, people are probably running more crit resist than they ever have, but it's really the least effective it's ever been, like you just said, with proc sets, the Malakath Band. And I think that will eventually balance itself out, and I think it currently is, but I still think there's a lot of instances where it hasn't fully balanced out yet.
Yeah, I think eventually, like we kind of look at things a year or so from now when the dust is kind of settled from it all, and it's going to be an interesting little paper, rock, scissors situation there, because you can kind of take a gamble on whether you think someone has a lot of crit resist or not, and depending on your build, you're either going to be doing a lot of damage to them or hardly any damage to them.
I've always imagined how great that's going to be when, like you said, there's like these three players. One's rocking crazy high crit, and they go hit a player that that has the Malakath, or that has a whole bunch of crit resist, and they do nothing, and then the Malakath Band hits that player. Another player with the Malakath Band hits that player, starts doing a lot of damage, but then that other high crit player starts hitting that player. That player's got no MPin. It's just going to be really funny to see that.
Yeah, exactly.
Come into play later on.
There's so many things, and there's only so much room in a build to invest in different types of defense. That's why I always like kind of investing in speed more than anything else, because that's going to be effective no matter what.
No matter what, that will always be a benefit for sure.
Yeah, no matter what kind of damage someone's throwing at you, if you can just dodge it or just not take any of it, then that's pretty effective.
It always works.
And I think right now, like the meta that we're in right now, mobility is more important than ever. You're going to have to be able to run and duck and hide to recover from all the stuff we've been talking about. This is kind of turned into just like a meta episode.
Just talking about the meta.
Talking about
it turned into a BG report. We didn't even know.
Yeah. Kind of.
So there was another thing that I was going to ask you, just kind of, with the upcoming patch, obviously it's kind of exciting that it's finally happening, it's coming. So, we've talked a lot about the new sets. I was curious to see, and you may not even end up using any of these new sets, but I was curious to see your vote. If you were to use one of these new sets, what's the one you would for sure be going to? I know that you talked a lot about Elemental Catalyst and Unleashed Terror, but I didn't know if there was one that you were for sure I'm going to be using that set.
Those would be the two that I'm most interested in. I'm pretty sure I'm at least going to farm Unleashed Terror and try it. Because I think it's on that same stamDK build that I was talking about, that melee brawler. I want to try that out on her because I think it would fit that build really well. Even though I'm kind of discouraged on that build right now just because I don't think this is a good meta for that build. Yeah. But I'm not giving up on it because it can be good. It kind of depends on the composition of the match. If I get in certain matches where I'm up against certain types of builds and stuff, it's still very, very good. So yeah, Unleashed Terror is probably the main one. I'm at least going to try, but I'm not totally sure. Honestly, right now I'm using Bone Pirate as her main 5-piece set, and I'm kind of liking that.
You love you some Bone Pirate. It's one of
I
the
like
classics.
Bone Pirate. It's a lot of it's a lot of stats. It gives you a lot of good stats.
And I know that with the changes, you're a little bit down on Elemental Catalyst still, right?
Yeah, the wind's out of my sails on that one now. I don't know if I'm going to bother because that's basically like two grinds I would have to do to do that build I was wanting to do, because that would be for a Necromancer healer build was the idea there, and so I would have to farm 5 pieces Elemental Catalyst from a DLC dungeon, and then for that build I would have to also farm Black Rose Prison Ice Staff. So that's 2 farms that I think I was willing to do, but this last PTS iteration, they nerfed it so much that I don't know if it's going to be worth the time and energy, especially considering that build is already pretty good as it is, and it's even as it is right now, it's getting buffed this next patch. So I'll probably not mess with that.
I can't tell if you'll be surprised by this or not surprised by this, but for me personally, I think I will be going forward. Just because it's so far out there, I think I'm really going to try this werewolf buff build, where he's
not
just
surprised at all.
This ultimate buff build, and so the 2 sets, obviously, to make that work are both. There's 2 sets that are coming out with this patch. It's the Kraglin's Howl, so that's the one that after an enemy dies, you basically get a synergy that an ally can activate, gives them and you 12 ultimate. And that paired up with...
might be saying this wrong, but the Arcasis' Genius?
Yeah, I think that's how I say it, yeah.
And so that one is when you drink the potion, you and 3 group members gain 44 ultimate. Just pairing those 2 sets together, and I just love the idea. Ultigen, everybody knows, Nord. I'm Nord through and through. Ultigen, that's my favorite. So to force my teammates all to basically be, here's your Ultigen, everybody's joining in.
Yeah,
on a werewolf.
Think if you're rolling with, if I'm in group with Betsy, a Templar who used Crescent Sweep costs 71 ultimate, and so you're just keeping that filled up for me at all times, basically.
Yeah,
then.
you're gonna be having that thing all the time. And I love it, too, because I think it's going to work really well. I think it's cool to have a werewolf buff build. I think that's really going to catch people off
werewolf
guard.
Support build. That's really cool.
Werewolf support build. And I think it will work really, really well with other werewolves. If I have other werewolves in the group, they're going to benefit huge from it. They're going to all be able to be in werewolf form all the time. So I'll have,
they probably won't even have to worry about feeding on bodies and stuff at all.
Yeah. So I'll do the packed abilities to kind of help, with the group, other werewolves. So I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with that build. Yeah. It'll be interesting to try to make. I have no idea how I'll work the abilities and things like that. But, I've already got my werewolf build kind of put in place. And in, I've talked about this. It's a magBlade werewolf build that I'm putting together. And the name is Gift of the Rift. And so the fact that it's going to be this give ultimate to the group, I feel like it gives Gift of the Rift a whole new meaning.
That's true.
It's going to be
the gift of ultimate regeneration.
Yep, this is the gift of the Rift, and it just kind of ties back to Nords have ultimate regeneration. So
do you have a headcanon personality for this character in your mind yet?
Oh yeah, he is 100% built, and even looks like it. Basically, a character from Gangs of New York. Any character from that movie, I've made this guy look like that.
I think
just
of
that style.
Just you say the name Gift of the Rift, and I'm thinking Gaston from Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
Yep. Like that kind of bravado.
That works as well. I'm not an expert on Gangs of New York, but there's a character in the movie that he's kind of on the bad guy gang, and he's a bald guy. He's really stout. I think he's an Irishman. This character looks almost identical to that guy. That's kind of who I think of when I was making him. So
okay, I was into that movie at the time. It was a good movie.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Daniel J, one of the greats.
One of the greats.
But I think it's a done deal. I think I'm locked in. I'm gonna try to put this build together. So I'll farm both of those sets, and I think it's gonna be really fun to see. The only problem is that it will have to be a group build, because I think going around I'm just gonna hit like a wet noodle, just giving ultimate. So
maybe you can have an alternate solo gear loadout that you can switch to.
I might do something like that. Just a real simple, just max stamina build for the werewolf build. That's an easy way to make werewolves hit real hard. But those are definitely the two sets that I'm looking forward to with this new upcoming patch. I think that's going to be a really cool, fun idea to and it's going to be when it's in a group, it's going to be so fun to just see all these ultimates going off so much more often than they would be.
I think that's why you like ultimate builds so much, right? Because the ultimate abilities, those are the flashiest.
Oh yeah, it's all the flash,
bombastic stuff. So yeah, you get just seeing those visual effects more often will be cool.
Yeah, and imagine this, me running around with this with you and
you're gonna break Cyrodiil with that build,
dude. It's gonna just shut it down. It's just gonna crash the server. What was it? Gift of the Rift.
Yeah,
he got us again.
We had 200 negates cast simultaneously. Crash the server.
Oh, I love the idea of this build. I also love the idea of running this build with your stamDK. That's the ultimate generating set. Just to see, with an ultimate gen set or gen
that
build.
would be kind of hilarious. We got to try that. Man, too bad we can't have group BGs, right?
Oh,
it's like every time we have that conversation, wouldn't these two characters be cool together? Oh yeah, we could have tried that a year ago.
We need just some really sad music to play every time we say, "Oh, wouldn't that be cool, group BGs?" And then just cue the sad music, because there's.
I might make that. That would be funny. Make a little just sound clip every time we mention the group BGs and how it used to be. Just a little. I'll just push a button.
Here it is.
Let's
just take a moment to remember.
Or some sad piano music or something.
Really, more than ever, how many cool combos we could have with group PGs. I feel like we run into that.
It would be so. I miss it. I miss it so much. Especially I really love my support builds, and it's hard to play with them without being on comm with at least one other person.
Yeah. Yeah, it is tough. Support builds and BGs right now are very, very tough.
Turn Davius was a PvP support build only, and he's more of a tank.
You don't even play with that guy anymore. He's a PvE character now.
He's a PvE tank more than anything
now. Yeah. All right. I guess, do you have anything else to say as far as what you've been up to this week or stuff you're looking forward to? Any of that kind of stuff?
I will put out that I really do hope that people flood Cyrodiil when these tests go live. I know that we're about to kind of talk about them a little bit, and they mentioned some changes, but I really do hope people flood Cyrodiil during this just so they can get the most data as possible. I know it's going to be miserable during these tests, but anything we can do to get Cyrodiil.
Yeah, so let's get into that a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about what little news there is this week. It's very very little.
I feel like we both went bug-eyed when it was no patch notes. It's like, what? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's the first thing that took us by surprise. It's like, okay, Monday, here we go. What are those natch posts gonna say? And we pull up the forums, and of course, someone has made the weekly thread that we're obligated to make, which is where are the natch posts, right? And everyone makes a bunch of memes. It's always great.
Fantastic.
So that thread was there. I jump in there. Gina Bruno had already chimed in, so I'm like, oh sweet, they're coming. She's going to be telling us they're coming soon. It's all good. But then I read the comment, and no patch this week. So yeah, this last week, it's just a continuation of the previous week of PTS. So no changes to discuss this week at all. So we'll see what happens on Monday. Almost certainly going to be a surprise or two, even if it's minor. Usually what happens, they kind of stealthily slide in the surprise on the live patch. It's usually something it's hidden in like a fix. It'd be like, oh, we fixed an issue where yada yada yada, and it sounds like, oh, it's a bug, they fixed it, that's a good thing. But actually, the thing that they quote unquote fixed like really affects a lot of things, like how a lot of people play. So so we'll see.
I would put a wager out there. There's still some sort of Thracian. There's going to be some last minute Thracian change that slides.
I really hope so. That would be nice. I want that item. Like I still haven't farmed for it. Like it's such a neat idea. It's just such an out there item in general. Like I kind of, it would be cool to just have it and try to make a build around it. But I think right now I'm not interested in putting forth the effort.
Yep, I'm with you.
I guess that's another topic. So no PTS patch this week. We'll just have to see what happens on Monday. That's when the live Stonethorn patch is happening on PC. I was realizing we don't mention often enough what platform we're on. Like when we're telling people to contact us in game and stuff like that, we should start doing that. We play on PC NA.
That's a very good point. If anybody's out there whispering us, and just to empty silence, we apologize.
So on the topic of these Cyrodiil AOE tests, so there was a dev comment on this. Gina Bruno made a forum post talking about this. So for one, they're going to be pushing back these tests a little bit. Instead of starting August 24th, which is the day the patch goes live, they're going to wait till September 8th to start implementing these tests. That's a Tuesday. And each one of these tests, they say, is going to last about a week each. So yeah, that'll be pushed back a little bit. They say, Gina says that we'll push a full outline of all the planned tests and their start end dates in the next couple of weeks. They said that they decided to add a couple of additional tests involving groups. That's very interesting. I wonder what.
Yeah, I'm really interested by that line. I'm intrigued, and that they pushed it back. There's a lot of room for mystery here. They pushed the test backs, and now they've got some new group tests.
I gotta say, I'm pretty encouraged by that statement right there, because I think group dynamics could possibly be a major factor in the performance in Cyrodiil, and I know that's some feedback that's been given lots of times by lots of different people, and I think it could be a big factor if they look at like group sizes, and they're already looking at group healing. Like they've talked about how some healing sets are only going to apply to people that are within your group. If they expand that idea to actually AoE healing abilities and stuff like that, I think we could be onto a very, very positive track there without having to do all this cooldown nonsense that nobody wants.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the dream, right? Is that they fix all this just by making all these abilities and heals and AoEs, just affect group members, right? I mean, that's the dream. And then we could still keep our same type of combat.
That could affect performance and could improve balance in CP PvP as well. It could actually be, we could actually have a meta where you can kill people in CP PvP and no CP, possibly, because there's not nearly as much passive healing going on.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I feel like that's kind of an encouraging statement. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on there. And yeah, just like you were saying, Davis, it's extremely important that as many people as possible participate. As annoying as it might be to play your character and kind of feel like you're hobbled. I know, I understand it's going to be a challenge. But the more people that can get in there, the more data that can be collected, the more feedback that can be given. I mean, if for no other reason, just to have hundreds and hundreds of players giving feedback saying this sucks, please don't do this.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, seriously, just even if for no other reason, just for that, it's worth the time spent, I think.
Yeah, I think. I mean, you summed that up perfectly. I mean, I don't see anybody saying this, but maybe somebody goes in there and during one of these tests and they say, you know what, this is actually isn't that bad. Like I could live with this, and this is okay. And if you made these changes, it's not as bad as when I read. I don't predict that, but just like you said, you don't really know but to give them all the data so they can have as much information as possible to make the best choice going forward. Yeah.
And just a reminder again, like we had said before, we had talked about before, when they did that odd testing cycle regarding light and heavy attacks, where they were just kind of flipping that whole thing on its head, and basically the whole entire community was like, no, don't like that, don't do that, please. And they totally went back on that, totally did not implement that at all. So I think a lot of people like to say like the devs never listen, it's no use giving feedback, but there are plenty of examples of them listening to feedback and making adjustments based on that. They don't always do it. They oftentimes have their own ideas about what they want to do, and our feedback just isn't in alignment with where they're trying to go with things. So they don't always listen, but they do receive the feedback, and oftentimes I've seen with my own two eyes the feedback does have an effect.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on with that. There was a press release, create a bustling hub of activity with character pathing. So it's just a web article talking about this new character pathing feature in housing. There's no new information that hasn't been discussed lots of times already. So I'm not going to really go over any of that, but it's cool to see, like, I think this is kind of the first official, like, public press release about this new feature. So if you kind of want to see how that's being presented,
I am really excited for the character pathing. I feel like I haven't talked about that as much. I haven't had a chance to get to our guild hall to do much design.
Are you gonna do some stuff in the guild hall?
Oh yeah, I this is gonna be my stamp of approval for this week. Our guild hall with character pathing. This is gonna take our guild hall to the next level. We're gonna be next level. I want when people visit the guild hall, they're gonna feel like they're in an ESO city. It's gonna look like a city.
They're gonna think like a dev design.
Yes,
place.
that is the goal. So I'm this is my stamp for approval. That once we get a hold of this character pathing, the guild hall is gonna be next level.
That's cool, man. I really want. They have these new. What do they call them? These new NPCs that you can put in your house guests or something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
I would love them to take that idea a step further and let us have like a woodworker and a clothier and a blacksmith, like those types of NPC merchants to station in your house, because we have a cool crafting area in the guild hall. It'd be awesome to have those NPCs there that I could like buy materials and stuff from. That'd be so cool.
Have them set up there, yeah. That would be.
I wonder if they intentionally want to avoid that because they want to make sure you have a reason to visit cities at least once in a while.
I feel like as long as you keep the writs in cities, you're fine. You're always, as long as you have the guild traders and the writs in cities, you're always going to have enough traffic in cities. As long as you don't ever ever bring those outside of the cities. But I think those two are powerful enough to pull people to cities constantly.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. So yeah, maybe they'll add those kind of NPCs in the future. I mean, it seems like that's not outside the realm of possibility. I mean, there's still lots of, I'm sure there's still, that idea might be on a drawing board somewhere. I think housing is a component to this game that is growing, I'm pretty sure. And I think it is something that they're interested in investing in.
Yeah.
That's all the news. So yeah, no PTS this week. Cyrodiil AOE tests pushed back a little while, and there's going to be some group stuff added to those tests that's really cool, and then the character pathing news article. So super duper slow news week. I'm actually really impressed that we've been able to talk this long with such a slow week.
Hey, you say theory crafting, and me and you can go on and on and on for a while. That's all it takes. Plus, I feel like we haven't had a whole lot of chance to really dive into this PvP meta, and so that was something that we've kind of briefly talked about, but it was good to actually be able to kind of dive into it.
Yeah, we haven't really. Yeah, you're right. We haven't talked about it extensively. Even off mic, we haven't really talked all that much about just kind of the state of things and what we think about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am looking forward to Monday, to this patch. I think I'm a little nervous about the meta, the meta that we're currently in, and basically we're just going to be on a more extreme version of the current meta, more or less. But at the same time, I mean, my characters that are benefiting from this meta are going to be benefiting even more come Monday. So, I'm both nervous and excited at the same time. I think it's going to be fun. And this stuff always goes in cycles. This time next year, we're going to be onto a totally different kind of meta that might be stat based or whatever. Like I said, like we were talking about earlier, Davius, the key is to have a diverse roster so that you can always adjust. No matter what, there's going to be some type of spec, some class, some build that's going to excel more than others. So that's what you want to do. But I know that's probably not the solution for some people. I know some people, like our buddy, shout out to Grizzly Khan.
Grizzly Khan, shout out of the week.
Shout out of the week. I knew we'd find a way. But Grizzly has a main character that he mostly plays with all the time, and he doesn't like to juggle a bunch of ults, or a bunch of alts. Although he does have some, but he likes to spend most of his time on one character, and I think a lot of people are that way. So it is a bummer, if you're on a certain spec that doesn't really excel right now, and it might be more difficult for some people than others to make that adjustment. I can definitely sympathize with that.
For sure. I will say this, that I do think we have to give a shout out to ESO specifically
as an MMO, is that if there's any MMO out there, ESO is the best one to build alts on, because it's the only, well, at least of the major ones out there, it's the only one that once you build a character, max that character out, you can kind of put them on a shelf and just tinker with them. You don't ever have to worry about them falling behind or all their gear going to trash. You really can kind of build them, put them on a shelf, and just kind of revisit them whenever you're able to. But they're still right up, just as relevant as they always are.
Yeah, I've never played any other MMOs, but I've heard that lots of times that the leveling process, like the post leveling process, is much smoother in this game than it is in other.
Yes,
MMOs.
Very much so.
It's cool. Well, man, I think we've probably been talking long enough. Honestly, surprisingly, quite a while. A lot longer than I was expecting.
Yeah.
No emails this week, but if you'd like to send us an email, you can get a hold of us at scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. That's scrollin with an IN, scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit us up in-game on PCNA. I'm Ket Sparrowhawk. Davius is at StarJumper. Just hit us up, say hello, ask us a question, tell us a joke. We have a guild called Stoon's Goons that's mainly a social guild with a bit of a PvP focus, but we do a lot of everything. We do a lot of PvE as well. We even do a little bit of goofy role playing. Nothing weird, don't worry. That's the title right there. Nothing.
There we go. Yeah, that's it right there. Write it down.
Yeah, so I guess that's the episode right there. We hope to hear from you, and we will catch you next time on episode 29.